Hello, welcome to another RobotStudio tutorial training. Today we're going to be talking about how to create a tool. The tool is going to have a mechanism, it's going to be a gripper, it's going to have a smart component, and then actually create tool data for it. So when we attach it to a robot, we'll actually have a TCP data for the gripper. I hope you enjoy it, and let's jump in and get started. Okay, so this is actually my fourth time doing this. The first time I forgot the smart component. The second time I found a problem with the way I was doing tools, so I'll explain that when I get to it. And then I did a really good one, but I bought a brand new monitor, and the monitor is 39 inches, and the resolution did not show up very well. So anyway, hopefully I can get it right this time. So we are going to open up our old tutorial that we've been working on. And in this tutorial, before we created a robot base, put in a robot cart, actually even had a path inside of it. So we're going to use this, but once again, I use a lot of shortcuts, and the keyboard shortcuts help me be quick at doing things. I'll try to call them out as I'm doing it so that you can kind of know what I'm doing in the background. But for example, I want to make all these invisible, so that shortcut is Shift-Control-A. And again, if you want to see that shortcut, you can go to Visible, and it shows it right here, Shift-Control-A. That's what the shortcut is for visible. So now that I've done that, we're going to start today by creating this gripper. This gripper is an SMC gripper. You can download it right off of the SMC website. It's an MHZ2 25D. These are SolidWorks models that I just downloaded straight from SMC's website. So that's the gripper that we're going to be working with today. I created a couple of parts inside Onshape to be able to mount this gripper to the robot. So I'm going to import those two parts into it. That's a base, and then one of the teeth. So I call it a tooth, but I'm going to call these fingers and this a tooth. But one of the things, okay, so what we have to do to get started is I'm going to hide the actual physical cylinder, the gripper, because I want to focus in on this base plate. The base plate is going to be attached to the IRB 2600 using these holes out here. When I design this in Onshape, it's actually flipped around on the orientation that I want to have. So I'm going to come into this, and I am going to reposition it. So I'm going to do set position, and I'm just going to flip it 180 degrees. Oh, sorry about that. I moved it 180 degrees. I'm going to flip it 180 degrees around the x-axis, and then I know that it is 9.53 millimeters tall. So now what you can see is that the world coordinate system is down here in the center, and that's where it's going to get snapped to the robot. So everything is based off of this coordinate system, and that's the way that I want it to be in this. So I'm going to go ahead and close that. I'm going to show Shift-Control-A, the cylinder, and now I want to move the cylinder up to the base there. So we're just going to go with a 1-point place command. So this moves the cylinder. I'm going to make sure you select the cylinder and then select inside the XYZ combo boxes up here. And then I'm just going to select the cylinder, center of it down there to the center of this, and apply. And now it's moved it up to that, which is great. That works good. And now if you can see, like, the mounting holes aren't lined up. So I have these bosses in here to put a bolt up through to mount to the cylinder, and then using these holes to mount to the flange of the 2600. So I'm just going to show you that here. I'm going to look at the bottom of this. Bottom view I have is Shift-Control-B. Okay, so then if I select the base, I'm going to show that I can grab the gizmo here, and I can rotate it around. And here you're going to see that there's the two holes that I want to align it to. And that's very interesting. So it's actually offset. So what that means is that, and I noticed that when I was moving the cylinder, I actually saw that there was a little bit of a shift when I did it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to look at the position of that in relation to the world coordinate system. And here you can see that there's a little bit of a shift. So I'm going to make these 0 and move that back. So then when I look at it from the bottom view, select the base here so it's at the origin. And then when I actually rotate it around, we're going to see that those line up perfectly. Okay. So now I'll be able to put the bolts in through here, bolt it to the cylinder, and then you can see I'll have 4 bolts around it to be able to bolt to the flange of the 2600. So that's perfect. So now that we got that, I'm going to leave the teeth off of it for right now. And what we're going to do is move on to the next part, which is creating the mechanism. So this gripper has these 2 parallel fingers that move together mechanically with a piston inside here. So right now, nothing's going to happen. There's no motion, nothing. And how we do that is we're going to create a mechanism. So I'm going to come up here, modeling tab, create mechanism. My mechanism, I'm going to name it gripper. It's going to be a mechanism type of a device. And then you got to create links and joints, and I'll show you how to do that. So double click on the link, brings up the create link box. And this is, I'm just leaving the names. Link 1 is fine. Oh, I forgot to do one thing. I'll show you here. I'm going to cancel out of that. So in order to create mechanisms, you have to have the components in the main tree. They can't be nested underneath the component group. So I'm going to delete this because I'm going to use these 3 as my parts for the mechanism. So I'm going to come back over, double click links, come into here. I'm going to select the body. I'm going to set it as a base link, move it over into added components, hit apply. Okay. So it showed up as link 1 over here. Now it just popped up another box here because I want to add some links to it. Another link is one of the fingers, add it to added components, hit apply, shows up on the right hand side. And then the last one, the other finger, add it to added components, hit apply, hit cancel. Now we have 3 links over here. Joints, okay, double click the joint. We're going to create prismatic joint. It's just a linear move is all that prismatic is. I'm going to actually select my axes for this. So my axes is going to be, I'm going to come in and select my filter here so that I can select these points. So I'm going to do that as the first point. That edge is the second one. So my axis runs right through the center of that. My limits are going to be 0, and then I just know that it's negative 7.1 millimeters. And what you're going to see is now that link moves back and forth. So I'm going to apply that, and now I can do the next one. The most important thing when you're doing this is you got to make sure of how your links are related to the base link. Right now it shows that my link 3 would be in relation to link 2, which if link 2 moved over here, then link 3 would move according to that position. And that's not what we want. We want it link 3 in relationship to the base link. Prismatic, we're going to come in, create my axes. Again, the exact same thing. Since I did this one from this point to this point, and this one from this point to this point, it's the exact same limits. Minus 7.1. Oh, not 71. 7.1. And you can always test it and see. Okay, so we're going to apply that. Now we've created the links and the joints. We can come down here and compile the mechanism. And now we're going to add a couple of poses to it. So I'm going to add a open pose, which is exactly where the fingers are at right now, and then a close, and we'll say closed. And we're going to say these are in the closed position. So now when I click these over here, open, closed, close out of that, and now we have our mechanism. And you can come over here and you can see in the menu tree that it actually created a mechanism called gripper. Inside the gripper has our bodies for L1, L2, and L3. Once you create the gripper, you can't come back in and manipulate any of the geometries in it. So you want to get all that done beforehand. Okay, and then you can come in and you can select mechanism joint jog, and you can see that I can move these fingers. But again, these fingers move mechanically together with the piston inside this gripper. So what we want to do to make that motion as real as possible is we're going to create a smart component. So up here, we come up, we create smart component, and inside the smart component, I want to be able to have a logical gate. I'm going to come in and have manipulators, which is a pose mover. So this moves a mechanism to a specific pose. We're going to select the gripper that we just did. And here's a bug in RobotStudio. Maybe they can fix this. But when you select it, it doesn't actually populate the poses. So I always have to close out, right click on it, go to properties, and now it actually updated the pose. So I want this to be open. Okay, so we're going to apply that. So this is pose mover, open, open. I'm going to say it takes 0.1 seconds to fill the cylinder with air and open it up. Okay, so we just did that. I'm going to come back over to the menu tree over here. I'm going to rename this to open. And then I'm going to copy this. So Control C inside the smart component, Control V. I'm actually going to rename this to SC gripper. It's really important to me that people try to standardize how they want to name things. I don't care how you do it. For me, smart components are SC. Although it has the icon next to it, I just find that it's easier to see it in the menu tree over here or in the component tree when you have SC onto it. So that's just personal preference. But you can see that I just copied this one and pasted it into here, but I don't see it in my view. And the reason why is it copies it straight over the top of it. So sometimes it just gets confusing that it's hidden there. We're going to rename this to close. And the reason why I go in and I edit the one smart component, so this pose mover, I edit and set it all up, and then I just I just copy it. And the reason why is because then all the parameters come across already in there. So it makes it really easy to come back in and just change this to closed. And now I have an open and a closed pose mover. Okay, so now we're going to have a signal that we're going to come in and we're going to create. The signal is going to be, I'm going to call it DI close gripper. You can think of this signal as, think of how it's going to come out. So it's going to be a signal coming out of an IO port on the robot, goes to a valve. That valve, when I actuate it, I want it to close the gripper. So when it's a 1, gripper closed. When it's a 0, it's going to open back up. So I'm creating that signal in it right here. And now what's going to happen is when it's a 1, I want it to close the gripper. I'm going to invert the signal. So when it's a 0, this isn't actuated, it is. So when this is a 1, this is closes. When it's a 0, inverted, and it opens it back up. So that's the smart component. If I want to see that, I just click on the smart component main top level, and you're going to see the signals that I put into here. So now I can go back into my viewport and I can open and close the gripper, and it did not work. And we need to see why it didn't work. Closed, open. Okay, that's really weird. I can come in and I can execute these signals here. But inside here, when I select this, oh, I did not make this a NOT gate. Not. That's the problem right there. So now properties. Now it opens and closes just fine. Sorry about that. Okay, and so when I click this signal, now it opens and closes the gripper just fine. Okay, so now, just to recap, we position the mechanism, put everything into place, we created a mechanism, We then created a smart component, and now we're going to create a tool. So I'm going to move these open because what I want to do now is I want to make sure that I get the teeth in the right position. If you don't do this right now, you can't do it once you create the tool. So you need to put these in the right position so then you can attach them after you do create the tool. And I'll show you that here in just a second. So, okay, so there's one tooth. I'm going to move this. So this one tooth, come in, do place 1 point. And I'm going to select that hole. And we're going to select this hole. Okay, so I just created that one. I'm going to call that gripper tooth A. And I'm going to copy that one, paste it in, call this one gripper tooth B. Okay, so B, we need to rotate 180. Oh, geez, 180. We're going to move it way over here and do the same thing, kind of a mate type of thing, just placing it right where we want it to be so that we can attach it. So that point to this point, and now you can see our gripper looks pretty good. Looks pretty good. I'm going to come in just to make it look better. I like things to look good. I'm going to set the color. I'll do a graphic appearance. So I'm just going to apply a material. It's going to be a dark gray and hit OK on that. So now it looks good. Okay. Next, we want to create a tool. Here's a really important step that I would suggest. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a group, and we're going to call it gripper. And yes, you can name things the exact same name. I'm going to move the base, I'm going to move the teeth and the smart component and the mechanism all inside the gripper component group. Highly suggest this. Copy and paste that. I would suggest to name this something that you're not going to use it, because I messed up on this last time, and I'll show you where I messed up on that. But just as a backup, because once you create a tool, you can no longer access all these things and you have to start all over. So, but if you create the backup here, it's just a copy of it, and now you can reuse it if something bad happens. So, okay, gripper. So now what we're going to do, create a tool up here, modeling tab, create tool. My new tool is going to be, I try to name things again, TL gripper for tool. I'm going to use an existing set of geometry, everything. I'm going to call it gripper. I know it's about 0.5 kilograms. It's about 50.8, 2 inches up. Going to move into the next one. This is going to be the tool data gripper. And I know that it's just straight up, and it's going to be 87.2. And where I'm doing that is I want that to be right up here when these two are closed, right at this point when it's closed. And you'll see that here in a second. So I'm going to say done. And when I hit done here, it's going to create a tool, and then it locks all this up. So there it is. Tool done. Really good. Inside my tool, what you can do is go into the Home tab, and now you can see I actually have tool data, not TL, because that's the main tool. My tool data is TD gripper, and you can see that that's my tool, my TCP for this tool. Really good. Okay, I now can go in and what should we look at? Smart component, right? So if I do the properties on the smart component and I do this, you can see the teeth inside here are actually moving, or the fingers, but the teeth aren't. So this is what I learned in a mistake. I can't move, if I right click on here and go to position, I can't move the geometry or the bodies inside of a tool. What I can do though is I can attach them to the tool. So I'm going to come down and I'm going to go to my tool gripper, and inside here, as you can see, this is selected on tooth 1, which is this one. So this is tooth A. I'm going to right click on tooth A, attach to, go all the way down to the gripper, and as I highlight over the top of the two links, you should see them. Oh, and they don't. It's hard to see which one's which. So you just have to figure that one out. Which I can come into here and I can do links, I can do gripper, I can do my links, and link 2 is this one. Link 3 is this one. So link 3 goes to tooth A. Okay, so that's what we have to do. Attach this, go to link 3, don't update the position of it. Tooth 2 or B goes to link 2, don't update the position. And now when I go into the gripper, it's perfect. Oh, here's why. I didn't hide the backup. I should have hid the backup. Because now you can see there's the tool. It opens and closes with an I/O signal. So now whenever I do a digital I/O signal and open and close that, it's going to open and close. Great. Next step. We're going to come back in. I really don't need the backup gripper anymore, so you can delete it or you can save it as a library. You can do whatever you want. Right now, I am going to save this as a library. Inside my RobotStudio libraries, I have an end of arm tool, and I always try to, again, standardize naming, end of arm tool, TL gripper, and I'm going to save that just so that I have it saved and I can use it whenever I want to. So the base, I'm going to show the base of the robot, and I'm going to show the robot. Because now what we want to do is we're going to attach the tool, attach to the IRB 2600, find that, T-Robot 1, select it, and yes, I do want to update the position of it, and yes. And now you can look and you can see that we have a tool sitting here. Okay. So one more thing that I'm going to add to this one that I didn't to the previous ones is I want to go in and I want to show you how to actually have an I/O signal to open and close this in Rapid. Because in the Rapid program right now, you can't get to the smart component. Okay, so on the controller tab, we want to come in. I come in into configuration, and I'm going to do, you can do add signals. And this can add a group of signals, like a lot of signals. You could add 50 signals if you wanted to. Or you can just add a single signal. And how you do that is you can go to configuration, I/O system, into signal, double click it, right click, new signal. I'm going to call this digital output close gripper. Okay, type of signal is going to be a digital output. Assign to device. Since this is a virtual controller, I don't have to assign it to a device. My access level, I want to create all, and I can hit OK on that. Okay? Obviously, one of the bad things inside the controllers is once you put a signal in, you have to restart the controller. I think that's probably everybody's biggest pet peeve about ABB's controllers is that you actually have to restart the controller. Okay, so now we have a signal inside there. And what I want to do is I'm going to come into the simulation tab. I'm going to go to station logic, and now you can see I have the 2600 here. Oh, I'm going to select the DO close gripper. Very interesting. So since this is inside of the tool, it's not showing the smart component here. So I can't attach that signal to it. That's a bum deal. Okay, here's a quick little update. I was playing around with trying to get the station logic to work with the signal in the gripper that I created. And one of the things that I showed was how to be able to create the tool data with the gripper. All of that's the same except for you got to leave the smart component out of that, because if you create the tool with the gripper in the component group, you can't access the smart component from the station logic. So I created the gripper with the exact same way, doing the exact same thing, but I did not have the smart component in the component group that I selected inside the tool, like use existing, this selection here, this component group, I didn't have the smart component inside of that when I built the tool. So then what I can do is I can come over and I can create a new component group, and I can truly call this tool gripper. The only thing is that it's not going to show that tool. So that, and it might be, so then if you move the smart component into that component group after you've made it, see how it takes it out? So you can't access it. So in order to attach the signals to it, you have to do this, do close gripper to di gripper, okay? And then if I move it into it, it's hidden, it's not showing up. But if I go into my IO signals, sorry, let me get it here. Simulation. Over here, do digital output, and I'm gonna do do close gripper. You can see that it's actually doing it. It's attached to it. It's not in the station logic. So, and in addition to that, if you remember, we have to actually attach the teeth to the, so that tooth is going to be attached to gripper link 3. No, I'm not going to update the position. Attached to gripper link 2. No. And there you have it. That's with the station logic. It's not shown in here, which is very odd. It is part of this this component group. And now what I can do is I can right click on that and I can do save as library and do an end of arm tool of this one. I'm gonna overwrite that one. And then the only thing that you would have to do is that you would come in and you would import this in, disconnect the library, and move that subcomponent group out. Little nuanced, don't really like it, but that's the way that it has to work. Hope that helps. There you have it. So you have a gripper now attached to the robot, and your gripper can be open and closed. Hope you enjoyed that. Next time we're going to connect the signal. We're going to try to do some motion with it. Like and subscribe. Let me know in the comments what you want to see. I'm happy to try to do as many tutorials as I can.